Okay, so welcome to the first of two panels dedicated to the Western Balkans at the Dubrovnik Forum in 2025. The official title of our panel reads The Western Balkans and the Euro-Atlantic Path, Trust, Transparency, Transformation. I spent the entire day yesterday preparing for this panel by seeing what the ministers have been saying lately in their interviews and statements, and also by rewatching the panel from last year, because most panelists here have been almost exactly a year ago, I think it was a little earlier last year, on this panel. And after having done this, I had this strong urge, I finished yesterday evening at 11 o'clock, to watch the movie Groundhog Day. And not because of the guys sitting here, but about the circumstances in which they have to operate. I think all of you have seen this movie, so I'm not going to repeat the plot. Only pointing out one difference between Groundhog Day and the Balkans. In the Groundhog Day, the main protagonist, played by the actor is Bill Murray, he ends up in a time loop and relives the same day over and over and over again, whereas for all the others, it's like always new. It seems to me the difference with the Balkans is it's Groundhog Day for everyone. It's not only one person reliving the same day, but everyone. And so I took the liberty of unofficially renaming the title The Western Balkans and the Euro-Atlantic Path, How to Escape Groundhog Day. We have 4 acting foreign ministers and 1 former foreign minister, plus 1 member of the European Parliament and the High Representative of the international community. Did I make a mistake? Did I say, I said 4?
Who's former? Who's former? Which one is
I thought that Mr. Stier was foreign minister, no?
Yes, he was.
See? Okay. Just ask me, I can tell you.
But he's in the government as being foreign.
No,
being careful.
Yeah, but that's why I said former foreign minister. He's not as a capacity, of course, here as former minister.
In English, acting is for the time being.
Sorry?
In English, acting minister is...
Oh, you're right. Current foreign minister. You're completely right. Current foreign minister. Yes, you're right.
In Balkans.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I stumbled a little bit with the words here. And I will go by the alphabet of the countries that you represent. I thought that's a democratic decision, which means I would begin with Albania and with Minister Igli Hassani. Last year you said, and I quote, "Justice reform in Albania is the biggest reform since our independence." And while, of course, when you talk to opposition politicians in Albania, they say, no, that's not true, it's all fake. From the outside, and I'm only an outside observer because I do not cover Albania as a correspondent, it really looks impressive. If even the Special Prosecutor's Office is arresting and indicting, I understand, the mayor of your capital, who's from the governing party, and if your prime minister just today, I understand, at least today I read it, demands the dismissal of 340 local administrators for corruption, illegal building permits and whatever, then something serious must go on. Can you brief us a little bit on, basically in prolongation of your sentence from last year, of this being the most important reform since independence?
And I continue to say the same thing. It's the biggest reform that has happened into my country since independence, because for the first time there is the establishment of a possibility of having an uncorrupt set of judges and prosecutors that who would have thought of it 5, 7, 8 years ago. And it's happening. It's giving results. It's creating an environment where people are gaining more and more trust to live, invest, and go to the courts and expect to the decisions without the need of knowing somebody and gifting something and smiling to somebody else. And the sentence is not my prime minister that has been saying it. And when you look at the independence of Albania from 1912, it has been an independence of many good and bad things, but one thing was constant corruption. The continuous establishment of individuals that use the powers of the office to make profits. And it's thanks to the current government that things have started to change. And the opposition, I don't speak on its behalf, but the results of what we're doing were seen in mid-May at the elections, and the results are clear and speak by themselves. The Prime Minister is keeping the attention, the focus, the willingness of the government to continue serving properly to our people. And we will push all our appointed officials to deliver more, to deliver better, and to deliver at any cost to the citizens, including the fact that some have to be removed from the offices, appointed, I'm talking about the appointed ones, because we see that we have a responsibility that has to be shaken into the foundations of the fight against corruption and the willingness of our people to join the European Union, join the European family, reunite, as Antonio Tajani has been saying and was repeating this morning in this hall, reunite with the family to which we belong.
I have another question of a more specific question regarding whether these reforms actually change anything in your prospects of joining the European Union, but I'll keep that for the second round. I'd just like to now ask you generally, in a general term, do you get signals from Brussels that yes, we see what you do, we understand it, and this is really bringing you closer fast?
The European Commission has been clear, the European Council has been clear, the European Parliament has been clear. If we continue to do the necessary reforms, every single candidate country can see itself closer to the European Union. If we fulfill the necessary obligations, it is a merit-based process, and we will continue to do so. Albania, and I'm not trying to brag anything about it, but Albania, since mid-October last year, has started to open clusters of the negotiations, and the track is quite fast. We aim to close. We aim to finish opening all the chapters, all the clusters by the end of this year, and start closing chapters by the beginning of next year. We have a clear understanding with the Commission on the technical negotiation, and we're also aiming to have a clear understanding of what will happen after 2027, when we aim together with the Commission to close this technical chapter of the negotiations. But what is the most important thing is that the Albanians in the Republic of Albania have light at the end of the tunnel. We see light. And that light is the European integration, and I really hope that we will be together with many others. Why not all the countries in what has been branded for such a long time, Balkans, Western Balkans, people from the Balkans, people with tail, people without tail. One day I really hope to be alive, not to be branded anymore from the Balkans. I've constantly asked all our colleagues from Bulgaria to organize a trip of us to that mountain, Balkans. I've never seen it in my life, but I've been called from that mountain all my life, at least to see it once and do nothing about it.
You can start with a trip to the Western Balkan mountains, maybe.
Where is it?
Minister Konakovic, last year I remember, and also I watched it yesterday again, that's why I remember it, we established that you are officially the largest politician of the Balkans, 5 centimeters taller than Alexander Vucic. I said 2 and you corrected me 5. 2 centimeters were fake news. And I also would like to begin with something you said last year. You opened your statements with talking about some politician that still is an issue today, Milorad Dodik, and you said, this guy is completely under Russian control. He just returned from Moscow at the time we met last time. And I'm just wondering if Dodik is completely under Russian control, and 49% of Bosnia-Herzegovina is completely under Dodik's control. What does this mean for Bosnia's European orientation? Prospect.
I'm still the largest diplomat, 5 centimeters taller than Vučić, and 3 centimeters, excuse me, Igli, taller than Edi Rama. And excellent, that is an excellent sentence from the movie. Dodik went to Moscow 3-4 times after the last Dubrovnik Forum. It looks the same. He's going to Moscow, he's getting back, he's getting orders, he's implementing Moscow interests. And we are having the same message from Brussels. You need to deliver. And we are struggling to deliver. Bosnia is a country of consensus, you know, and Dayton, we need to reach consensus about every single issue, about every document, about budget, about laws, about everything. And Brussels, they all know that this guy is completely controlled by Moscow. They know that Moscow is against Bosnian membership, full membership in EU. They know that Dodik can block everything. They know that Dodik is blocking everything. They know we cannot deliver without Dodik. And they are repeating, you need to deliver, you need to deliver. And we are really trying to deliver. We have some new moments. We have the deepest crisis in Bosnia-Herzegovina ever, probably after the Dayton. But for the first time, this is not an ethnical crisis. We have opposition from Republika Srpska, strong enough to resist Dodik's attacks, and really pro-Europeans, like pro-EU oriented. They voted together with us for 2 important laws, because we have our homework to do to start officially first IGC. You know, we have 4 laws to accept, to confirm. And we adopted 2 laws.
Which were the laws that you adapted?
Actually, it was, I know we need to adapt law on courts, one more, and high judiciary system is the second one. One was the personal data protection, and the 4th one, I cannot remember clearly. But we delivered 2 with the people from Republika Srpska, Serbs from Republika Srpska, supporting our EU path, and Dodik was, of course, again against the laws. And he stated 2 days ago, again, that he's against our membership into European Union, because he said we're going to lose our identity and the entity Republika Srpska will disappear. So now you can imagine our frustration. Every single meeting, all negotiations, we are really ready to deliver, but it's not possible without Milorad Dodik, because he's still in power. We had some ideas to replace him on the state level, at least in the Council of Ministers, because we have 1 free position. If we put a guy from Republika Srpska opposition, we can be more functional. We can elect the chief negotiator, but we are still negotiating that issue, you know. So it's really hard. We still have more than 70% people in Bosnia-Herzegovina supporting EU path, but I'm afraid that if we continue with the frustrations, that EU story will not be the winning ticket for the elections in 2026, and that's a big problem for all of us. If European Union doesn't control this part of the world, someone else can jump in, including Russia, of course, as a leader of that story. We have some other Eastern influence in Bosnia-Herzegovina ready to replace this European interest. So then we're going to have really big trouble, all of us.
Yeah. To come back also to the panel we had here roughly 1 year ago, you referred to a decision from March 24 when the European leaders decided that, yes, we want to open negotiations with Bosnia, provided, in their conclusions, they said, provided some conditions are met. To which you said then, I quote, the conclusions are achievable for Bosnia and Herzegovina. We need to adapt a few more laws, like on courts and on data protection, but those are technical issues and it should be easy to achieve. Yeah. But I understand some of the laws are still outstanding a year later.
Yes, of course, they're still easy to achieve. I will tell you the reason why we didn't confirm the law on courts, because Dodik, he's in trouble, of course. He had 2 processes on the court, you know, and he wanted to control Bosnia-Herzegovina court. He wanted that seat of the court to be in Banja Luka, which is really strange. because all other institutions are close to Sarajevo. It's a part of Republika Srpska entity, but it's much closer to other institutions, so it can be more functional. And he was insisting that the seat of that court should be in Banja Luka because he wanted to put some pressure on the judges who actually should decide about his personal case. We knew, all of us, that was the reason, so that's the only reason why we still didn't agree about this law. And the second thing, he was really surprised. I will share some secrets with you. He was convincing me 2 days before the trip to Brussels that EU will not grant, they will not give us a green light this time, you know. He said, they don't want us, you will see, they're pretending, they're not ready, you know. And it was really brave decision from Brussels to conditionally grant start of negotiations to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he was shocked. And then after that, he went to Moscow several times. He had meetings with Putin, and every time after he was coming back to Bosnia and Herzegovina, he was acting the same, accusing all of us, fighting with the West. USA, EU are the enemies, Russia is a friend, you know. It's really strange, but it proves that he really is completely controlled by Moscow. That's the biggest problem of Bosnia and Herzegovina at the moment. So we still have two to deliver. Technical laws, we agreed with the opposition, and I hope all of us, including HDZ, together that we will support those laws and we can deliver our homework and start with the first IGC, so that's going to be historical for Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Okay, maybe one short last question. I don't want to make this all about Dodik, because Bosnia-Herzegovina, hvala Bogu, is more than just Dodik, but it is also Dodik. Germany, Austria, and before the US and Great Britain have put sanctions on Dodik. Would it make your job, your life as a minister easier if Croatia also put, would you wish for your neighboring country also to put him under sanctions?
Yes, of course. Of course, every European country who puts Dodik on sanctions is helping to the citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina, including Serbs in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I will just, please tell me, give me a few minutes to share this story, because it really shows how complicated it is. After he actually was fighting start to fight for himself to survive politically, he proposed 2 laws in Republika Srpska Assembly, denying and blocking state institutions, you know. It's like he said, no more no more court of Bosnia and Herzegovina, no more prosecutors, no SIPA, the security state agency. They are blocked, they cannot act in Republika Srpska. And then he invited Serbs to leave state institutions. And he said he was threatening to Serbs, he said, by law, accepted in the Republika Srpska Assembly. If you don't leave state institutions, you can go to prison. And he was threatening to the judges on the state court. He said, if you don't leave state court, I can take your property. I will take your house, your apartment. That's the last stage of Dodik's secessionist, like, crazy story. So then, at the end, sanctions are really functional. They proved that actually everyone who follows Milorad Dodik crazy ideas will suffer, will feel the consequences. So if it's possible, I call for Croatia, for all other countries in the EU, to put him on sanctions, because we know that his good friend, Viktor Orban, is blocking European sanctions from European Union.
Yeah, thank you very much. Which opens the floor for the host, who should, of course, be able to respond. But maybe, if you allow me, before we continue on Dodik, and maybe then come to other topics finally, because this is not a Dodik talk show. There is one question I must ask, because it would be strange if we sit here barely a week after an event that has been reported all over the world. Croatia does not very often make it to the headlines of the world news. Sometimes when your soccer team reaches the final of the World Championship, they do. But last week it was a different issue. It was, of course, the concert of Mr. Marko Perkovic, called Thompson. Now, you will never read, and I insist on saying this before I ask my question, you will never read from me there were 500,000 fascists or neo-fascists in Zagreb. That's, excuse me, I should watch my language, but that's not true, in order to avoid a different word. And you will also never, you will always, and you know this, I think, because you read our paper, it's very clear that Croatia was a victim of Serbian aggression in the 1990s, especially in 1991, also when the war began, when the Čavoglave song was written. So that's all a given, and I just want to clarify that before I ask my question. I'm just wondering, when people, and I visited Mr. Perkovic in his village in Čavoglave, we spent a day together. Later he regretted, of course, having invited me, but that's how it sometimes goes when you invite journalists. And he told me what others also tell me. No, this famous 3 words, Zadom Spremny, you must not forget. No one associates this with the time from 41 to 45. This is associated with our homeland war, the defense against Serbian aggression. And I would even believe that many of those 500,000 people at the concert, they actually do associate it with the homeland war. But I'm wondering, if this is the case, what does this say about the Croatian education system when you can finish school and when you hear Zadom Spremni, you think only of the 90s? Isn't there a problem that's deeper than one concert and one event?
First of all, I'd like to, as a host, to express my really satisfaction and gratitude to any of these ministers who came, and a second time or third time, and I will be also more happy to host you also next time. It's an 18 edition of Dubrovnik Forum.
Including the moderator after this question, or?
Why not? So, and I know you were also was ambassador to Berlin, but there are so many former foreign ministers. The longest-serving wartime minister Mate Granic, Žužul, Kovac, Stier here, and Tonino Picula also somewhere there. But you started with this question, and having in mind that the Croatia, it could be really a good story and example for also the other countries in the Western Balkans. And Croatia is open democracy. Croatia shares some European values. And you started with this concept, which is actually the reality. 500,000 people there, and you said with the fascism and so on, and probably with education, and probably, I think so, I'm good father. My wife is a good mother, and we are good parents, and my children were there. And when my youngest daughter, she was 24, next day she wrote the newspapers, and she was so surprised. And she said, it's just not comparable with the reality she saw at this concert. Because the concept that saw the behavior of the friends of the younger people, and first of all, they were in the age at 30, 35, and so on, cultural behavior of all their friends there, and what is the fascism, and what is Nazism? There were no place for that. What is the perception? And perception of those who were not there, perception is just a subjective reflection of the objective reality. So reality was totally different. Of course, we have to make distinction between the motto you mentioned, Zadom Spremni, or for home, or für die Heimat bereit, wie sie jetzt in Deutschland sagen. So that it's just we condemn this motto in the context of the Second World War and the War Crimes Committee by the so-called independent state of Croatia. But however, at the same time, there is completely different context of the using this motto during the 1990s and during the Homeland War. And you mentioned that you visited Mr. Thompson in Čavoglave. I was also there. He was a veteran. He was defender with his battalion of Čavoglave, and it is also no coincidence that his first song was written in 1991 in trenches. So Croatia was occupied. There were rebels and aggressors led by Slobodan Milošević, and so you have just put this song in the context of the homeland war. We were all alone. No one helped at that time Croatia. So, and for this reason, even the left-wing Croatian government in 2000 and so on, they legalized this motto just for their voluntary Croatian forces, just to boost their moral, defending the country. It's no connection to the Second World War. It's not connection to the High Hitler. But however, so if you know that some of their at the concert there were no incidents, nor ties burning, nor the damage of shop windows, no destroyed cars and so on. Nothing. But probably some of them, there are 10 or 12, I don't know, they were prosecuted because of this motto, Zadom Spremni. But so you have to accept that this is just used as part of his performance during this concert. And my Prime Minister, he explained it. Of course, we are against fascism. We are against Nazist ideology. Please, could you find it in Croatia? So Croatia could be a good example when it comes to the respect of the citizens, of the minority, when it comes to the freedom. Croatia is open. There are so many concerts happened in the last day. For example, Ciao Bello. No one is warning about Ciao Bello or Ultra in Pula or Ultra, for example, yesterday or 2 days ago in Split and so on. But so please, just we don't want to expect that the government, the Croatia, is a good example of democracy. Democracy is old. As Theodoros yesterday said, democracy is old, but not old-fashioned.
Thank you. The thing is, we could spend the rest of this panel only talking about these three words and would still not come to a conclusion. I reserve my right to think a little bit differently, but we have discussed it now, and we can move over to the future, because this is why this is a perfect introduction to Timchu Mucunski from Macedonia, because North Macedonia, because you know what it means when history takes too much place in the present. You actually said last year one of the key aspects of our region is that we are backwards looking and not forward looking enough. Well, and who would know better than you or someone? Last year you were, I think it was your 5th day in office. Now you are 1 year, a little more, which also doesn't make you exactly a veteran of politics, but you have already something to talk about. And yeah, I know. That's what I said. He said here. He said last year there's too much history. Did I say 5 years?
No, 5 days. 5 days.
Yeah. 5 days. It was only 5 days.
Yeah, exactly. It was your 5th days in office. That's what you. I know. You told him to come from Brussels directly here. I wanted to ask you, and don't think this sounds like a police interrogation, but it's not going to end up that way. Do you remember, or where were you on July 14th, 2022? You don't have to know.
You can. I presume you can remind me.
Yes. Well, no, I wouldn't know what exactly you did, but I'm quite sure I know one of the things you did that day. You listened to the speech of Ursula von der Leyen in the parliament of Macedonia in Skopje.
I wasn't a member of parliament. But
no, I know. You were mayor of a part of Skopje, yes, exactly. Yes. But I suppose even as a mayor of a part of Skopje, you were interested in the speech by Mrs. von der Leyen. And I wanted to quote 2 key sentences. She said, "There can be no doubt that the Macedonian language is your language, and let me assure you, bilateral issues, such as the interpretation of history, are not conditions of the accession negotiations." And now you find yourself in a situation where exactly this is happening. Bulgaria is making history a condition, and the European Union is supporting it. Do you feel betrayed by Mrs. von der Leyen?
So, thank you for the tough question. First of all, I want to give a thanks to Gordon and his entire team for organizing a great event and for this wonderful panel. This was my first international event as foreign minister, as you reminded me last year, and in life we always remember everything that happened first, wherever we are in life. If I sound better today, then it's because of experience. If I don't, then we'll blame the heat. But what I can tell you is that this is a great event where we can openly, with people such as yourself, discuss the pressing issues. And this is a pressing issue. And, you know, allow me to bring this answer in light of what happened only a few days ago in the European Parliament, because I think implicitly you were referring to this event. What happened in the European Parliament, I can myself label as misguided and shameful. And it was not just semantics.
Should we maybe not everyone followed it, explain what exactly happened? Would you like to?
Would you like to, or should I?
I think you should.
Okay. So in the European Parliament, there was a progress report where there were a few sentences related to the Macedonian language and identity. And at the end, through a majority in the European Parliament, these sentences were erased. And that's why I say that what happened in the European Parliament was not just, as I said, semantics. From our interpretation, this was a political act of identity negation. And I want to be clear. You know, 19th century and even 20th century, nationalism has no place in 21st century Europe. Identity is not an issue, and I spoke about this last year as well, that can be negotiated. It's fundamentally, at the end of the day, a human right, and good neighborliness doesn't mean tolerating provocation that comes from the other side. Now, unfortunately, what happened in the European Parliament is a majority backed this deletion, but also let me say that many principled MEPs voted against or abstained. One of these principled MEPs is sitting with us here on this table, and I thank him and all those who did that. And it is also proof at the end of the day that conscience still exists in European politics. I think what happened in the European Parliament is unfortunate. It sends all the wrong signals, not just to us as a candidate country, but to all the other candidates sitting on this panel and the next panel. But it also sends a message to the member states and to European institutions that they should turn it into an opportunity which finds a way to draw red lines, that bilateral issues cannot be disguised as institutional neutrality, because that is what's happening right now. And I consistently speak about the snowball effect of bilateral issues, because there is not a country on this table that doesn't have a bilateral issue. But I also repeat a lesson. Ireland and the United Kingdom, who managed through membership in the European Union to solve very difficult and similar historical contexts guided by the future. I fear that there are governments in the region, and in my case, I think that the time for naivety and diplomatic nicety should be over. We should call a spade a spade. And my fear is that the existent dichotomy within the Bulgarian political system is creating a situation where there is an ideological divide in the executive in Bulgaria. But one thing that they always end up uniting on is their approach to the Macedonian question, which is a clear negation of identity, of language, and of historical interpretation in the 21st century. And I regret that a year later, we are in a more difficult situation than we should be. But I also believe that in all of our societies, there are those who are forward-looking and who want a European future. And a European future is more what you spoke with Dino about: rule of law reform, electoral code reform. This is the challenges that I want to be speaking about as foreign minister. I want to admit that we have a lot more to do when it comes to good governance, and speak about legislative changes, and speak about what our government is doing and what more it could be doing. But sadly, as you see in the 21st century, you have a foreign minister speaking about the negation of identity, language, and history. And this is a shame. And we need to call a spade and expect that the member states will step up and find a way, first of all, to solve this issue, but also not allow this issue to be used as a precondition for other member states to do this to other candidate countries. This is the narrative of aggression, very similarly to the narrative from a political aspect that Russia is using against Ukraine, and what we have to call on and appeal to is rationality, while at the same time using our role in government to not allow this defocus to be a defocus from the priorities of our nation on its path towards European integration. And here I refer to the substantive reforms that need to happen.
Okay, allow me 2 short statements and 1 question. Statement 1, no doubt, you are right, Bulgaria is wrong. Statement 2, being right doesn't always help in life, especially not in European Union negotiations. Question, does the friendship treaty between you and Bulgaria still makes any sense when it is so openly misused for the opposite of friendship?
I think that Bulgaria is missing a historical opportunity. And I will relay this into the Friendship Treaty. The Friendship Treaty has an obligation for Bulgaria to spur forward our European path. And instead of using this as an opportunity to be a factor of stability within our country and within our region, it is creating a generational gap. It is difficult sometimes to explain the frustration that exists among Macedonians towards Bulgaria at this moment. And this is especially prevalent among younger generations. And if they keep on missing this opportunity, this will be an issue from a social aspect that will be difficult to fix. I remind many in the early 90s, when Macedonians rooted for the Bulgarian national team at the 1994 World Cup, the generation of Christos Stoichkov. A few years ago, we had the Bulgarian national anthem booed at our national stadium, which means that poor policy, lack of a clear vision, creates divisions between peoples that are unnatural. And if anything, if this approach continues, then any attempt toward dialogue, towards rationality, towards a future, will be, the gap will be more and more difficult to bridge. And that is why I constantly appeal towards Bulgarian politicians that we need to sit down, we need to discuss, but we need to start talking about the future. As I said 1 year ago, I'll repeat it, not about the past, but let's talk about the future.
Yeah. Okay, allow me 1 short question. Just while listening to you, I had to think of it. I traveled to Macedonia, now North Macedonia, for 25 years more or less, and I've never noticed anti-Bulgarian sentiments until maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It was always, Bulgaria was a neighbor and it was fine. Now all of a sudden I do feel, you talk to taxi drivers and people, and there is, I wouldn't say hostility, but there is not a positive view. Would this mean that there is like an emotional shift in society towards Serbia, which is anyway strong? People listen to Serbian pop music and watch Pink TV, whatever. Is this an effect of the Bulgarian policy that young people are shifting more towards the Serbian sphere?
No, I would strongly disagree with that. I presume young Macedonians, as much as they listen to Serbian music, they listen to Croatian music, they listen to Albanian music. A great pop singer from Bosnia might also have influence. I would say we are in a region where we consistently influence ourselves, as well as if a good song comes out of our country, a young Croat, Serbian, or Bosnian will listen to it. So I far from it. But yes, there is a frustration towards the way Bulgaria is behaving, understood very much, because to have the future of generations, of young generations, as well as the dreams of older generations, hostage to the political atmosphere in a single country, as I said, if I weren't foreign minister, I would use probably a more difficult word. I will just say that it's pure shameful.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Mr. Stier, you watch the policy of Europe from its center, from Brussels. And we just learned, I didn't know that you abstained at this vote. Maybe let's not go into the nitty-gritty of this now, but on a general term, the European Parliament is still very much for European enlargement, but are the European member states still very much for enlargement?
Well, thank you for that question, and I will briefly go through some of the other aspects that were raised
as you wish.
Before, if you allow me. I think when it comes to enlargement after the Russian aggression to Ukraine in 2022, a new geopolitical momentum was there, and there was again a new impetus, and enlargement was in the agenda again. Some countries have used better that opportunity, I would say, and I think that you can see the dynamics, for example, for Albania, although Montenegro is still statistically the one who is probably the most advanced, but when you look at the dynamics, Albania is catching up, and there are still issues there, obviously, rule of law, a lot of polarization there, but you see that they seized that moment. If you ask me, they understood also the importance of siding with the West, with the CFSP, with the condemning the Russian aggression and being very clear on that path. Some other countries in the Western Balkans, unfortunately, did not understand the same situation or didn't have the same reading. You have, for example, the situation in Serbia for 3.5 years. There is absolutely no progress with their negotiations. And they're still, in that sense, trying to have a policy of, the so-called multi-vector foreign policy, having equally good relations with the EU, with the United States, with Russia, with China, which obviously then has certain limitations when it comes to alignment with our foreign policy. Now, I would say that after now 3 years, the doors for enlargement are still open. But it's true that you can see that there are now considerations, well, to take some stock, what has happened since then, and that some countries, as I mentioned, the case of Albania, have made some important advancements there, and others, unfortunately, did not. In the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, I think it was very good that they were granted a status of candidate, and it was obviously through also a huge support from Croatia. I remember when the Croatian Prime Minister, together with the President of the Commission, and at that time the Dutch Prime Minister, now the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, visited Bosnia and Herzegovina in order to create that consensus that was not existing until that moment in the Council, also to take the decision in March last year to open negotiations with Bosnia and Herzegovina with certain minimal conditions. Unfortunately, those conditions were set: data protection, border control, prosecutorial council, the Court of Bosnia and Herzegovina. 2 are still remaining, and the appointment of the chief negotiator. So, unfortunately, we are still waiting for that to happen in order to open negotiations. And when we can analyze every country, in the case of what Tim just said, I think that I will say in the parliament, and he knows that very well, some members will try to find a way how to facilitate the unblocking of the accession negotiations. And you know that in the negotiating framework of the European Union, there is a requirement there for North Macedonia to amend the constitution and to include in the constitution Bulgarian, but also Croatian minorities in the constitution, as it is the case for the Macedonian minority in the Croatian constitution, for example. We are still waiting for that. We wanted to have a language that will make easier for the government in Skopje to go into that direction. Unfortunately, We are not in that situation right now, but I think that we can still support that process, trying to find ways. And I do believe that sort of a bilateral dialogue between North Macedonia and Bulgaria is necessary and should be supported and facilitated eventually in order to unblock the negotiations. So that would be, I think, my reactions to some of the things that have been said. Let me finish by reacting to your comments, if I may.
Of course.
I think that when it comes to this salute that you mentioned in the Marko Perković-Thompson song, well, let me go with the story of a group that was during the Second World War anti-communist, radically nationalist fanatics. They wanted to have a national state for their people. They were led by a guy named Stefan Bandera, and they have a salute, Slava Ukraina. And, well, obviously, that was the context of World War II and a collaborationist of the Nazis, as Bandera was. But many decades afterwards, when the heirs of the Red Army invaded and attacked Ukraine, that salute was used as a sort of opposition to that aggression. The very same thing happened in Croatia. Now, you can choose to believe Mr. Putin that you need to denazify Ukraine. You can choose to believe Mr. Vucic or some others who believe that Croatia needs to be denazified, or you can be on the side of the Ukrainian people and Zelensky, or you can believe Prime Minister Plenković. I choose to believe those who are on the side of democracy.
But since you brought this up, since I lived in Ukraine as well, I speak only Russian, no Ukrainian, because at the time when I lived there, it was no problem getting by with Russian. I would just like to add, it's true that Slava Ukraina, Gerojem Slava has the same or has a similar history, but the war in Ukraine is now as we speak. And last time I checked, the war in Croatia is over for 30 years, so it's not the same.
Yeah, sure. I think that you are right, but it's also true that you have concepts like the Russian world that unfortunately led to the aggression. That unfortunately were there even at the times where, for example, Nord Stream 2 was built, even if we were advising not to do that to our friends, as well as we were advising to our friends, and I was at that foreign minister, not to support those who were elaborating a concept called the Serbian world. And I remember my talks in Berlin about that. Now, this concept of the Serbian world, unfortunately, is here. It's present. I don't believe that we have, fortunately, any danger of an escalation and an armed conflict, but this is a destabilizing concept, and unfortunately, our friends, or certain our friends in the European Union, did not pay attention to it, are not paying attention to it, as they did not pay attention to the Russian world concept, and we see the consequences.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt, in our popular game, look what I said last year, I picked the quote from you from last year about the role of the United States. Last year we had an American participant in our ranks here at the panel, you might remember, and we were speaking about the role of the United States in the Balkans. And you said the United States plays a very, very important role, the role of political reassurance. And I suppose you also were thinking of the Biden administration and Ambassador Murphy reassuring you. Now they're gone. What does this mean for your work and also for the implementation of the law that was passed on your initiative, according to which not fulfilling the decrees of the High Representative is punishable?
Thank you. It is good that it's not on any institution or any new or old administration It is to get on the key issues which have been agreed on, by the way, 30 years ago in Dayton. One can talk about today I think this way of reassurance, meaning that people have some, I wouldn't say guarantee, they feel that if things are going wrong, that there are some people to help. Just coming from Srebrenica yesterday, we talked a lot, I think maybe the first time really intensely, about the failure of the international community 30 years ago. Why did Srebrenica happen? In a UN-protected zone, guided by a blue helmet mission. So I think it is necessary not to talk about war, that time is over, but to talk about political reassurance. I would take this as well for the new administration. We have nobody sitting here, but we have contacts, and we see that there is, up to now, some awareness about the situation. I wouldn't see that Bosnia-Herzegovina, the Western Balkans, or the region is top ranking in the priority level of in Washington, D.C. This is understandable because it follows as well the idea to have more European responsibility, not to draw out fully. And I just may say I see a lot of really remarkable attempts to keep U.S. in the responsibility. And so this is a positive understanding, but I come back to what I said 1 year ago. Yes, it remains as well with the new administration. They should stay here.
Thank you very much. I have one question for our host, and then I have a general question that I would like to dedicate to all, because and then whoever feels, maybe everyone could drop a line, so to speak. But let me ask one specific question. Now, I guess we are back into history. We have another. We just mentioned Srebrenica, the 30th anniversary of which was commemorated yesterday. We have another anniversary coming up that is not so much into the, I mean, didn't have it on my radar, but it's coming up, the Split, Declaration of Split on the 22nd of July 1995. And we have a panel later where one participant who was in JEPA at the time, I think it was JEPA, yeah, said
Joseph.
Yeah, he's here somewhere, I don't know. Yeah, there he is. Who told me, and who will repeat later, I think, actually, had it not been for that declaration, we would not have had just one Srebrenica, but two. I mean, we had many Srebrenicas anyway before that, in Bijeljina, in Bratunac, wherever. But he said basically the same would have happened there had it not been for the Split Declaration. Should we maybe spend at least some words on the historical significance of this declaration and what it meant, and what it maybe can mean today for Bosnia and Croatia?
Yeah, thank you so much and for this question. And so I'm really very happy because of your question, because the Croatian role is so questionable also nowadays. And when I see and when I heard about the Croatian role at that time, I cannot believe it. Croatia, from the very beginning, supported independent sovereignty of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it is not only Split Declaration, it is an agreement signed between Alija Izetbegović, president of Bosnia and Herzegovina, or at that time Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Croatian President Franjo Tuđman. Can you imagine, on 21st of July 1992, that it deepened the alliance between Croatia on a military way. And then, as Mr. Schmidt mentioned, that it was really a shame that Srebrenica and JEPA, although there were safe zones, however, It did absolutely nothing, just to prevent then Serbs and forces to capture them and military. And we know, unfortunately, these results, atrocities and genocide. And yesterday, and we marked 30 sad anniversary of this and what happened. And to not happen again, to prevent the catastrophe, humanitarian catastrophe in Bihać. So there, on 22nd of July, 1995, the leaders of Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina decided just to deepen this alliance and between the two countries, and by signing this mentioned declaration, and actors, they are here, at least 2 or 3. Mate Granic, who was then former minister, foreign minister, Mr. Žužul, who was advisor to the President Tudjman. I think the Kasim Trnka, who was the first ambassador, Bosnia and Herzegovina ambassador to Croatia, and I think there are so many of them. But of course, what is importance of this document? It was the legal framework just for a Croatian army to operate on the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, just to prevent this humanitarian catastrophe, and of course to break the siege of Bihać and counter Serbian offensives. Who remembers this meeting between the two generals, Dudakovic and Marekovic, on the bridge on Una, I think so. But just in a nutshell, this document is important because of the main point. Just it was the turning point that ultimately made the peace on the ground possible. And second, politically and legally, and this declaration also was one of the crucial stepping stones towards Dayton Agreement, and it happened 4 months later on. And I had really a good opportunity to get there also with my Prime Minister, Mr. Mate Granic was there, Žužul, a couple months ago, and in Dayton. Also the Foreign Minister Konakovic as well. So where we marked this anniversary, 30th anniversary of the Dayton Agreement. Unfortunately, first of all, the principles of Dayton Agreement were 1 country, 2 entities, and 3 constituent peoples, plus the checks and balance, what it means just power sharing mechanisms. Just in order to design, it was designed, this document, agreement, to prevent domination of any other ethnic groups. Had the Croats then known that it will be not applicable in the practice, they will never have signed this agreement, because they are now, they are not equal. They are not equal. The Croats in Bosnia and Herzegovina want to be equal like the other constituent peoples, because it's enshrined in its international law. It's the Dayton Agreement. Dayton Agreement means equality of 3 constituent peoples and others citizens.
Thank you.
And it is the reason why Bosnia and Herzegovina, the political leaders, need to change electoral law to eliminate all forms during the elections process.
Thank you very much. We discussed it also in an interview for Frankfurter Allgemeine. I remember we have about roughly 20 minutes left. My suggestion is the following, and I saw Mr. Schmidt raised his hand already twice. I have seen it, and I always respect the rights of the Protestant minority of Bavaria, of course, which you represent. But I wanted to ask one general question, to ask you if you have comments on it. Ask it also some of your chiefs of cabinets have contacted me, what are you going to ask? And my minister would like to say this and that. Say whatever you like. I'm a moderator, not a dictator. So you can also ignore my questions. Mr. Konakovic did it last year and gave a much better answer than my question was. But one question I think we should discuss, and then bring in anything else that is on your mind. We discussed it partly last year with Tin Szumutsunski. We have this idea of the Western Balkan countries joining the single market in the sense of having full access to structural funds and being completely treated as if they were members of the European Union, enjoying all the four freedoms, being able to live anywhere you like. So basically the citizens would not even notice that they are not in the European Union, with just 3 exceptions. They wouldn't have their own commissioner, they wouldn't have a veto right, and they wouldn't take part in the European elections, which many people don't do anyway. This idea is on the table. I find it very interesting and intriguing, but I want to please keep this idea in mind and think about something else. Emmanuel Macron very often has given speeches, and I think he has a point, saying the European Union already now, as it is, with 27 members, meaning 27 vetoes, is working with huge difficulty sometimes. We see it, you mentioned the Russian sanctions. One country is enough, or very often when it's concerned Turkey, then you have Cyprus. Why would it be in the interest of, for example, my country, to allow new veto-yielding members to the European Union? Why? Why should we do that? Why? And then say, oh, but Montenegro is small. Yeah, but the veto is just as big as any other veto. So put your shoes in the position of members. Why shouldn't the member states say, okay, you get the single market if you qualify, which for your citizens basically in everyday life will mean you are into the European Union. You can open a company in Sarajevo. It's going to be the same as if you open it in Paris or Hamburg. You are completely on the same step, except of the veto right. And basically, now from the point of view of the members, why should they accept Tirana, Sarajevo, and thus Banja Luka, Podgorica, Skopje to have a veto if it's already difficult as it is now? That's my question. You can agree or disagree, but I think that's something that's worthwhile discussing. I see Mr. Stier.
Well, I think that first of all, it's good to have this concept of the gradual integration, and the growth plan is actually has been designed along this idea. I think it can be even improved, but I think that the gradual integration is a good approach. And we are still a lot of things that we can do. For example, for the Ukraine, you have on the roaming issue, in the agreement between the EU and Ukraine, a binding clause to eliminate roaming. With the Western Balkans, it's voluntary, so the telecoms are basically not doing that. And it will be already a sign that all these societies are integrated into the European single market when it comes to roaming, for example, if we could advance into it. It's just a small example, but why to pay roaming if you are calling from Mostar, Sarajevo, or Belgrade, or Tirana to Munich, or Berlin, or Dubrovnik, etc. So, but the gradual integration should not be a replacement for the enlargement process. The enlargement process and full membership should remain on the table, but based on merit and on the individual, of course, approach. So I think that that is the two things that we need to combine. When it comes, why to keep the enlargement process open? Because at the end, the idea is that these countries will have a full-fledged membership and could also, in the Council, in the Parliament, or through their commissioner in the Commission, to legislate on the single market, on all these European policies that are already applied to them in the gradual integration phase. So that is about the first question. The second is about the QMVs, the quality majority voting. I think that we are neglecting the fact that we have a lot of QMVs already right now. on the really issues where the EU has competence. So I think that it would be wrong to say, oh, there's all unanimity. No, unanimity
no, it's not.
It's not. On many important issues, you already have QMVs. And even where you need unanimity, there are some clauses that could facilitate to get there when, for example, one country is not willing to participate in the vote, and in that way he can facilitate the consensus. So to open in this geopolitical moment the treaties, I think it will not be wise. I understand the question. I think that there are other questions about integration that are far more important. For example, when it comes to the Ukraine, obviously will be the reform of many of our policies and the budget. When it comes to the Western Balkans, the budgetary issue should not be so important. It's really the whole GDP of all the 6 Western Balkan countries, it's a little bit more than the GDP of Slovakia. So it's not an absorption issue for the European Union, but we will get the answer very soon. On the 16th of July, the Commission will come with a proposal for the next MFF, and we will see whether the funds are there for enlargement, or if we have a clause as it was in the last MFF. And even there, we could have more clarity to your first question, how much the countries in the European Union, in the Council, are committed to enlargement when they adopt finally this MFF. But again, gradual integration, I think, a great idea, but should not be a replacement for enlargement.
Thank you. I saw Timcho Mucunski, but I really don't want to be accused of overriding the national interest of the Protestants in Bavaria. So, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. Not referring to them, I could tell a lot of stories about this. So I'm an experienced minority representative. But I would like to underline about Bosnia-Herzegovina that there is quite often not referred about the character of Dayton. Dayton is not a meeting, a gathering, let's go and do. And first it was the ceasefire, no bloodshed, up to now. And second, it is the United Nations Charter Chapter 7. Please don't forget that Bosnia-Herzegovina up to now is under the regime of the Chapter 7 of United Nations. Action with respect to threats to the peace, breaches of the peace, and acts of aggression, and the following resolutions of the United Nations Security Council. So we have to work as well to bring this off if and when the situation is there. This is not a decision of the European Council. This is a decision of the United Nations Security Council. And so I just want to underline that sometimes we are only thinking in view of EUFOR and whether the Russians would accept to have just a simple rollover. No, this is as well one of the conditionalities which we have to solve to get to European integration in a better degree, because this, by the way, this includes all institutions, including mine. This is a part of Dayton and a part of Security Council resolutions, but don't, we're working on this, but don't see that this is a lot of work to be done, because there are others around the table, not only European Union. And so this is a challenge where I would like to say this is, you do not need to be a Protestant to say this is not easy. The signatories of Dayton, and this includes the Russian Federation, are then there, and we know that they are sitting, we talked a little bit about veto, and the Security Council, it's very clear that there is a challenge.
Thank you. My suggestion would be, because I know Timcho Mucunski wants to speak anyway, why don't we go down the row? You either answer my question or you use it for your closing remarks, whatever you have on your mind. That would be my suggestion.
And you have 7 minutes until...
Perfect. 7 minutes, and then in true Balkan way, I'll have the last word. Keep it to myself. No, I'll be very quick.
I'll interrupt you after 2 minutes.
I'll be very quick, and I want to echo very much what Davor said. So there is the perception aspect of it and the substantial aspect of it, or even more clearly, the political versus the policy. The political reason why this would be a wrong step, what I don't say you're proposing it, you're just throwing the hypothesis that is already there. You're stating what many people are talking about, if not in the background, it happens. So the political aspect of it is the commitment. The famous Thessaloniki summit in 2003, where the European Union said, we're committing to these countries. We want to make them member states. I go back even further for my own country, signing the Stabilization and Association Agreement together with Croatia. Sadly, Croatia now uses the euro as a currency as part of Schengen. We still haven't begun negotiations, but that's a different story. The commitment has been there. And the EU has always been an organization of values. In humanity, there's no bigger value than keeping your word. And I think from the political aspect, it's about the EU sticking to a commitment that it has made over 20 years ago. And that is why there can be no replacement for full membership for the countries from the Western Balkans. Apart from the geostrategic aspect of it, it's a matter of values and a matter of keeping your word. But when you move from the political to the policy aspect of it, there are things that can be done before we get there. And here, Davor mentioned the growth plan, which I hope that there can be more financing for it, because I don't think the sum is what we deserve. I think the EU budget truly has more capacity for this region. But the growth plan is an excellent facility. We had a very successful growth plan summit in Skopje only about 10 days ago, where we spoke about many tangible things. One of the issues that we opened was what Davor mentioned, roaming, very tangible. Our citizens feel the benefits of it. Second aspect that we talked about, something that Dino loves to mention in his speech, green lanes, facilitating quicker border transfers. Third aspect, quicker border transfers for everyday citizens. Why can't the citizens from the regions of the candidate countries use the fast passport lanes such as Swiss and Norwegian citizens do? I mean, these are very tangible things that can have effect. I like to point out, one of the most transformative aspects of the enlargement policy for my own country has been visa liberalization. Well, I like to say there's two aspects of it, visa liberalization and a Hungarian company called Wizz Air, because it's not just about people being able to travel, it's about them having the capacity to do it very quickly, very efficiently, and very cheaply. And these are the aspects that bring you closer to Europe, to European values, and help transform our societies. So in that sense, the political commitment should be there for full membership, but in the meantime, we should be talking about, yes, gradual integration, yes, phasing in all of these various different terms that do exist.
Thank you. Mr. Hassani.
I try to look at similarly to what was said, but also from a different perspective. The European Union is today the only entity, the only structure that is expanding democratically. Others, not so much, to say the least. And we, the candidate countries, have been, in a way or another, accepted to be candidate countries. The European Union has this natural possibility of expanding towards its neighborhood, but there are some neighbors who think differently, and we think that we want to join. And it's like in a class, you have to pass some exams, you have to take some marks in order to be members as the others before us. And we're trying to do that. It looks difficult for an entity like the European Union to have two external borders, one external, another internal, and we are the external neighbors, with societies that are fully European, with people that are fully European, with all the difficulties that we face but are focused on a European future. Our people migrate to Europe. They don't migrate to Iran, fortunately. Our people tend to act as European, to behave as European, to watch the movies, to follow the culture. Therefore, there is this great potential in these countries that we know very well we're not the center of the world, even that at certain moments of the time we think we are the center of the world. So putting conditions to the conditions is easy. The most important thing is to continue to deliver. We deliver for ourselves. We don't deliver for the European Union. We deliver for our societies. We deliver for our people. We deliver for our families, and we deliver because we strongly believe that we can soon be members of that bigger family of values that the European Union represents. The European Union, for us, at least, I speak on behalf of Albania, but I think my colleagues would agree. The European Union for us is not the big market, no. It's the big house of values that we aim to do. And we improve our own. We are getting better and better by entering into the mechanisms of that relationship. And we are able to deliver more and more positive things. I'm coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina. I was a host of my dear friend Dino, and I joined the commemorations of the terrible Srebrenica genocide. It's 30 years ago, it can happen every day. If we don't keep an eye on one another and create the right environment to be part of these mechanisms. Peace and stability in the Western Balkans come through the European Union, and I will always advocate this as long as I'll be in my office.
Thank you very much. Mr. Konakovic, you played basketball, so see how much time we have left before you have to score.
I can ask for extra time. You know that overtime, you have overtime.
You can ask for a timeout, yeah, but then you have to ask the...
To be honest, I had the easiest question in the first round. Dodik was the easiest question. After you started with Thompson's concert, identity issues with Timcho, and other...
Oh, we can we can have tough questions as well.
We'll do whatever you want to do. You have three reasons by me. Like, the first one is geography, of course. We belong to Europe. We are Europeans, guys, you know. We had tram in Sarajevo 100 years ago, before anyone in Europe. We had water infrastructure in Europe among first, like, I think it was water infrastructure, like, real one. And we are Europeans. The second one is economy, of course. Comparing with Slovakia now, it is almost the same. But comparing with Slovakia before they entered into EU, look the numbers. Look the numbers before the aggression on my country, how actually ex-Yugoslavia looked before. So that means that we can triple also our GDP like Slovakia, Czech Republic, and other countries were doing. So then count how this region can be economically important to the European Union also. And the second one, most important one today, is, of course, security issue. If EU doesn't control this part of the region or Europe, someone else will control. Then easily you can have some Russian military base here in the heart of Europe. Not only Russian, you can have Chinese infrastructure growing so fast. You can have other Eastern influences here, so that's really important security issue. That's the reason why I'm really putting a lot of efforts into our European path. That's crucial for my country. I will finish with the famous reconciliation story, you know. If we want to do something together, we have to agree about our history, which is really not easy. We are fighting every day about our historical facts, you know, and changing them every day, our historical facts. But reconciliation cannot start if you expect other side to recognize what they were doing during the war or during our common history. You have to start with you, but inside of yourself, you know. And I will just finish with the example of my people. And because it was Srebrenica yesterday, you know, it was 30 years of horrible genocide committed in Srebrenica. I'm Bosniak, you know, I'm going to mosque, I'm praying every day. And I have to prove myself almost every day that I'm not a radical, you know. I love Tom Ford perfumes. I have the last iPhone, you know. It's Pro Max, so I have 1 terabyte of memory, you know. And actually, when I'm traveling around the world, I'm mostly accused that I'm Hamas supporter and Hezbollah supporter. I have to prove myself every day in this region, and I'm doing that because of the stability of this region. I belong to the most tolerant people in the world. After the genocide, we don't ask revenge. We ask stability, we ask respect, we ask cooperation, and that's really important. Why? And I did started with myself, you know. I never celebrated war criminals or committed war crimes. It was a story during the war about fight between Croats and Muslims in Mostar. It's important because of importance of the Split's declaration, because of the important collaboration, cooperation between Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, resisting and fighting against Slobodan Milošević's regime, aggressor on my country. You know, it was a big fight between Muslims and Croats, and it was a guy, Arif Pašalić, was commanding officer in Mostar. And he asked for units from Sarajevo to help him during that battle. It was a big battle, you know. And it was a unit from Sarajevo going to Mostar, and they jumped into the Croats village, and they killed civilians. They killed 4-year-old girl, Mladenka. his deputy, Sejo Đulić, he wrote a story about Mladenka. Now you can see that play in Mostar's theater, and that speaks about our reconciliation approach. We cannot say that's okay. I cannot teach my kids, you know, it was Bosnia killing civilians, that's all right. That's not all right, that's wrong. I condemned Hamas attack on Israel soil, and they took civilians. They took civilians, kids, women, I don't know, they were somewhere on some concert. I condemned Hamas. I condemned Netanyahu, what he's doing today, killing civilians, you know, in Gaza for years. Like, it looks horrible, guys. I'm condemning every attack on sovereignty on every country in the world. But I started with myself. You will never find me or anyone from my people, I'm sure, celebrating war criminals or committed war crimes. If we do the same, it's going to be much easier for all of us to continue with some future ideas for the better future in this region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before I would ask our host to have some closing short remarks, thank you very much to all of you. If I may utter a wish, I would love to have a panel here next year, not dedicated to the movie Groundhog Day, but to the movie Back to the Future, in which we talk about demographic challenges, how to help how to tackle the challenges of climate change, how to improve infrastructure, having a high-speed train between Skopje and Sofia or whatever. Forward-looking issues. I'm really very much longing for such a panel without history, or where history is just, you know, the background music, but not the dominating theme. Thank you very much. And if you would like to have the closing remarks as the host.
Thank you so much, Michael. And as a host, I would like also express my satisfaction and to having here and my colleagues and from the Western Balkans. We just, because of the other participants, we split this the Western Balkans in two. The next one is following, but first of all, what I wanted to say that actually nothing changed since we last met last year. And as far as Croatia is concerned, we are the same position. That means, and what Igli mentioned, so the part of entity, so we are also part of entity of the European Union, and Croatian position is very clear. We are unwavering supporter of the Western Balkans, all of the countries of the Western Balkans, because Croatia doesn't need anything, and we on our foreign policy goals, we achieved everything what we wanted. What we want now, really, there is trust, to see trust and mutual respect in the Western Balkans, and Croatia is there to help, to assist further on, as we did in the past, and let's just look forward in meeting you, and next year again, and you, Elmedin, you mentioned the last year that so
we should sell the tickets for this.
And we will also accept actually your proposal probably, and there is my team is going just to reshape this.
That's perfect, yeah. Because we are on the record here. So let's have a future-leaning proposal discussion next year.
Entrance was free, but you have to pay if you want to go out.
Oh, that's like in communism. So thank you very much.
But also thank you so much. And I am for the second time missing colleagues from the Montenegro. And yesterday he cancelled at very short notice. But however, he is also former foreign minister Ranko Krivokapić. Ranko, thank you and for coming and just representing Montenegro, but just in the audience.
So thank you very much. Don't miss the other Western Balkan panels, and there is an interesting panel, I think, on the Splitska Deklaracija later. Thanks.
Thank you to the panel participants. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now take a short break and resume at 4:15. Thank you. Enjoy your day.